In this video, we're just going to go through a few simple tips and tricks that will make your intro to using Premiere much easier. When you launch a Premiere project for the first time, you'll be greeted with the default editing workspace, but this might not be the best layout for you and the way you work. If we head up to the menu bar at the top of the screen, we see an option for Window. If we click this, we can then select Workspaces and see all the default options for different layouts, optimised for different workflows. You can select any of these and see how they look for yourself, or, as we'll now demonstrate, you can create your own layout. If I click on the project name and drag it up, we can see that it can snap to different areas. Personally, I like the project browser to be in the top left of the screen, so that's where I'm going to put it. I'm then going to just resize it a little so that I can give more room to my monitor panels. Next, I'll just resize some of the other panels to optimise my work area. Once you're happy with your layout, you can then save this as a new workspace so that you can use it on future projects within Premiere. To do this, we go back into the Workspaces menu and choose Save as New Workspace. Then just give it a name and click OK. Your new workspace will now appear in the list of workspaces available to choose. Now we're going to import some footage to start editing with. The easiest way to do this is to double click in the project panel, which will bring up the Finder window on a Mac, or in my case the File Explorer on a PC. This allows you to search for the footage saved on your computer and, once selected, import it into your project. This is a good time to explain what importing actually means. When you import something into Premiere, it effectively just links the original file to Premiere, which means we never actually affect the original file, but just reference it in our project. Then, when you come to export from Premiere, we create a new file which has no association with any of the original ones. This is unlike other applications such as Photoshop, which can actually open the original files and therefore write over them with any edits. We have our footage imported into our project. Now we need to create a new sequence so that we can edit it on our timeline. When you create a new sequence, there are a myriad of settings you can choose, such as frame rate, frame size, audio frequency, etc. Get these wrong and it can make your project a mess. So the simple way around this is to utilise the footage we already have imported. If we select the video we imported earlier, we can drag this onto the timeline and it will automatically create a new sequence based around this footage. Premiere knows the frame rate, etc. of this footage, and so we'll create a new sequence using these settings. This means we know that any clips we add to the timeline will be compatible. Once we have named and saved the new sequence, we can then delete the clip from our timeline, so we start with a fresh, clean sequence. If we double click a video in our project panel, it will open this clip in the source monitor. Here we can select our in point and out point for the clip we want to add to the timeline. A keyboard shortcut for this is the letter I to create an in point and the letter O to create an out point. Once we have these set, we can click on the video and drag it into our timeline. This will bring the linked audio and video onto our sequence. Now, if we only wanted the video without any audio, we could click on the video icon under the clip in the source monitor and drag this onto our timeline. Now we only have the video from the clip and no audio. Likewise, we can grab just the audio by clicking the audio icon and dragging that onto our timeline. We can even link these back together if we wanted by selecting them both, right-clicking and choosing Link. But what if we already had the full clip in our sequence and wanted to separate the audio and video? Well, that's simple. We just have to hold down the Alt key on the PC or Option key on a Mac and click on either the audio or the video, and it will only select that. We can then move them separately or even delete one of them. Notice though that even though we have separated the audio and video, they are still linked together. So if you click on one of them, the other is selected also. Premiere now comes with some quite powerful colour grading tools built in. To access these, we need to activate the Lumetri Colour panel. From the window menu, select Lumetri Colour. This will open the Lumetri panel on the right of your screen. If we select a clip on the timeline, we can then apply some colour grading effects to it. So, I'm going to open the basic menu in the Lumetri panel and just add a warm temperature to the clip. We can see the effect immediately in our program monitor. If we scrub along the timeline, we can see that the colour grading has been applied to the whole clip. To reset the temperature, we simply double-click the marker on the temperature scale. Now what if we had multiple clips and we wanted to apply the same effect to all of them? We could copy the settings and apply them to each clip, but then, if we changed any settings, we'd have to do that for each clip. There's a much better way, and that is to use adjustment layers. At the bottom of the project panel, if we click the New Item icon, we get a menu appear. Simply select Adjustment Layer and click OK. You should now see an adjustment layer appear in the project panel. Drag this to the timeline and place it above the video clips. Now stretch it out to the full length of the sequence and select it. If we now go back to the Lumetri Colour panel, as we have selected the adjustment layer, the settings will apply to this layer. So let's adjust the colour temperature, increase the blacks a little, add a little more contrast, and even add a nice vignette. Adjustment layers affect all video layers beneath them in the sequence. So we can see that the colour grading is applied to all the clips on the timeline. This is an example of non-destructive editing, which means we leave the clips exactly as they are and only adjust the settings on the adjustment layer. So we can always turn the layer off if we want to return to the original clip values. We don't need to go through and undo any changes we have made, as we haven't made them to the clips themselves. The effects panel is where all the transitions and other effects are stored. Once we have found the effect we want, we can simply drag it onto the clip in the timeline. But finding an effect can sometimes take a while, especially if you can't remember the exact name of it. This is where custom bins come in. If we click the folder icon at the bottom of the effects panel, we can create a new custom bin. We can double click the name to rename it, and then we can drag and drop any effect into it. This will make a copy of the effect in our custom bin and make it much easier to find the effects we use the most. On to type. Adding text is very simple in Premiere. Just click the type tool or hit the letter T on the keyboard and click or drag on the program monitor where you want the text to be. You can then change the font, size, style, etc. in the Essential Graphics panel on the right. But what if you want to apply a certain style to lots or all of the text in your sequence? For this, you're going to need to create a text style. Once you have set the font and style you want, click on the drop-down menu under Styles and select Create Style. Then simply name your style. You can now apply this style to any text in your whole project. One of the advantages of using Premiere is the integration with other Adobe Creative Cloud products such as Audition and Photoshop. Let's demonstrate how you can utilise Photoshop within a Premiere project. I'm going to drag this still image onto our timeline. We can see that the image is a little larger than the frame size for our sequence, so if we open the effects controls, we can resize it to fit the frame. Now, we don't want all the text on the top of this image, so we're going to edit it in Photoshop. Simply right-click on the image in the timeline and choose Edit in Photoshop. This will automatically open the image in Photoshop for us. Now, remember, when we mentioned that Premiere imports assets and doesn't affect the original file, well, Photoshop works a little differently when you open a file. So any changes we make here will overwrite the original file when we click Save. So for this example, I'm just going to select the brush tool, increase the size and sample the colour next to the text I want to remove. Now we'll simply cover the text to remove it from the image, and when I click Save in Photoshop and return to Premiere, we will see that the image updates immediately in Premiere with the changes we have made. This final tip is the one I use all the time, especially when creating tutorial videos like this one. Sometimes when you are editing, you want to focus on one frame of the video and have this frame frozen on screen. There's a really simple way to do this, and it's by placing the playhead on the frame you want to freeze, and then right-clicking and selecting Insert Frame Hold Segment. When you do this, you will notice that the frame we selected is now extended on the timeline and behaves just like a still image. We can extend and contract it just like any other still image. What you will have noticed as well is that when Premiere created the frame hold segment, it shifted all the other clips along the timeline, meaning that in this example there is now no music underneath the frame hold. Now you may want this sometimes depending on the project you're working on, but I'll now show you how to avoid this, and it takes us on to a little bonus tip. If you click the lock icon on a track, it locks that track from editing, meaning that any edits you apply to the sequence won't affect that particular track. So, if we lock all the tracks apart from the one we want to create the frame hold on, and then apply the Insert Frame Hold segment, you will see that it only shifts the one track and all the others remain where they are.